7:01, welcome to the regular meeting of the North Smithfield Town Council. We will begin with prayer and pledge.
Lord, assist with the Holy Spirit of counsel all those who are serving in positions of authority and responsibility.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll do a roll call, Madam Clerk.
Sounds.
She contacted me earlier. She's under the weather. She won't be here this evening.
Mr. McGee?
Yeah.
Mr. Yasta?
Here.
Mr. Zelinski?
Present.
Mr. Clark?
Here. So moving on to item 4, old business A, discussion by council vote or other action on award of bid for drainage improvements to Pomona Street. We've got Mr. Casale on the agenda. Mr. Casale.
Council, Mr. President, I believe that you are all in receipt of a letter that my office prepared for Public Works Director Ray Pendergast, outlining the recommendations on the bids. Mr. President, November 26th, I believe, is the date.
Excuse me, the far right door. Try the far right door. Push that door.
I'd actually like to ask if it's possible to just have a quick recap, perhaps in the administration, for the benefit of people like myself that didn't have a history on this, just to explain why we're taking action this evening.
Well, I'll actually defer to Mr. Casale. He was pretty well versed. What
Okay.
I know of it basically is that we had an issue that had, stop me if I'm saying the wrong thing, an issue that had occurred on Pomona Street many years back, prior administration, prior council. And there was some work done to relocate some drainage.
Yeah, we were, I believe that there was a subdivision on Pomona Drive that had been approved by the planning board. It was under construction, and my understanding is one of the abutting neighbors asked the town to install some culverts underneath the road. In doing so, the abutter that across the street that was adversely affected had brought suit against the town. The local intermunicipal trusts had brought my office involved. My understanding is the case has been settled, and now we were required to remediate the site by basically bringing it back to current conditions, which we have the plans that have been approved, Mr. President, by the respective agencies. We subsequently went out to bid through contract administration. We have 5 site contractors, all qualified. You see the bids in front of you. There were problems with the bid documents in terms that a couple of the bidders did not comply specifically with section 300 of the bid documents, which is why we're deferring to the solicitor as to awarding the bid to the 3rd lowest bidder, American Site Corporation out of Johnston, Rhode Island.
And we can get into that, but I just want to be clear that the work that will be taking place is work that is being mandated by a court order. The town must do this, and the reason is because there were mistakes that occurred in the past when the town undertook this work.
Correct.
I just want to be clear why, because when I first looked at it, my question was, I don't feel comfortable spending this amount of money until I understand more about why we're doing it. And I realize that we don't have a choice in the matter.
Understood.
But that being said, I think it's useful, especially if we're going to be spending this amount of money, to know that we we have put in place some precautions to prevent or reduce the risk of this kind of thing happening. It sounds like we've got an engineer on call now, where I don't think the town had an engineer or staff previously. And I know that we've had discussions before about the value of having an engineer at our disposal, because it sounds as if some of the things that occurred may not have been signed off on, they weren't stamped, and so now we're sort of paying the price for that.
That's right.
And if I may, Mr. President, it was the previous Director of Public Works took on this project with the previous town planner's input. To my knowledge, I served on the planning board at that time, and I do not recall reviewing taking stormwater management from a particular individual's residential property, going under the town, or through the town's right away, and diverting it into somebody else's property. So that's why this is here. Okay.
Mr. President, we are on the court order to do this work. I have a copy of the court order if anybody needs it. And the plaintiff in this matter would like to see this done tonight, the award. I met with the judge today in Chambers. She would like to see it done. I believe that if it's not done, the plaintiff will seek damages for not going forward on this. It's been hanging around for quite a while, and I would urge you to take an action tonight on this.
But before we get into comparing the bids, aside from the issue of having a professional engineer available to consult on projects going forward, is anybody else aware of any other deficiency in how this came to be that we ought to be aware of? In terms of protocol, in terms of, I'm not really sure how it was authorized for that work to even happen to begin with.
It wasn't authorized.
It wasn't authorized?
No, it's not authorized.
No, so I mean,
It was not
we
reviewed.
have an understanding in this administration that everything is transparent, everything will come before you, even if it seems like a mundane thing. I can't imagine that our town planner that we currently have would go out on his own and suggest something that was not in the town's best interest, which obviously this was not in the town's best interest, it was in an individual's best interest.
Or the current Director of Public Works.
But it had to have been authorized by somebody, because there had to be an expenditure of some resources in order to make those faulty improvements, right? It wasn't just, I don't think that the town went out there with its own tractor and just did that, right?
To be quite honest with you, I don't know the whole history of this because I was not involved in this. Aside from that, I'm not going to get on the legal road tonight with this, because this is a case that has already been adjudicated and settled in court. And I think all the particular questions that you may be going towards may have already been addressed in this court case that I'm not even aware of. But I think going back to what Councilor Zelinski had stated, the previous Public Works Director was an engineer. And as a result of that, I don't know what happened. I know that under a reorganization in the budget several years ago, I want to go back 4 or 5 years ago, I actually consulted with the people in Warwick on this, and their advice to me was, you do not want your Director of Public Works to be an engineer. There are too many incidents or too many different type of scenarios that can occur. First off, you got Mr. Casali here on land in situations like that. I also have a hydraulic leak that I've been under investigation for 4 years. That's another engineering firm I had to hire. The advice that was given to me was, put a line item in your budget for consulting and engineering, and you can hire whoever you want. That expertise changes. One engineer doesn't take in the whole world. And to be quite honest with you, I'm learning that on a day-to-day basis here. And I think if this was in place years ago, maybe this wouldn't have happened. I can't answer that because I wasn't around for that. But I think that we have a hold on what we're doing presently. We've never had a problem. Mr. Casali works with us. I've used resource controls for the hydraulic leak. And so...
That's all I'm asking.
Yeah.
All I want to know is that the controls we have in place today will limit our risk in these kinds of situations. That's really what I...
And I believe we have that under control.
Okay.
And I think like anything else, you learn by past experience, and I think it's just something
It happened. Some of us with some history know how it happened. Maybe not why, but at least we know how. I don't want to speak for the council to my right, but at least we know why it happened. You learn from your mistakes, and I think that's exactly why Mr. Casale's here and other people have looked at it. And you go where you gotta go.
One quick question, Mr. President, just for my edification. The easements, we do have signed easements by Mrs. Nebricker to allow the water to be discharged onto our property.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Now, if I may, Mr. President, can we address the issue about the bid issues?
Please.
Maybe the solicitor.
Mr. President, members of the council, how I see it is if a bid is not in compliance or incomplete, then the bid's disqualified. I don't know how else to say that. If we don't disqualify them, I think we open up ourselves to liability.
Follow the letter of the law. It's unfortunate that someone did not acknowledge the agenda, you know. It's a major increase. I'll make the motion. Mr. President, hearing from the Public Works Director, hearing from the town solicitor, and seeing that we are on the court order, I would like to make a motion that the engineering award for this work be awarded to, for the record, third lowest bid because of problems in the bid process itself. The companies that bid had some errors in their submissions. Third lowest bid for American Site Corporation in the amount of $82,390.
Motion's been made by Mr. Zelinski. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Yazbat. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Yazba?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Casale. Next item on the agenda under old business is discussion by council vote or other action on report of town sewer options. Again, Mr. Casale.
President, thank you. Again, may I respectfully request the council's attention to a December 13th letter from my office to Town Administrator Paul Hamilton, in which we looked at multiple options for discharge of the town's effluent. In summary, Mr. President, we looked at different alternatives from tying into the Burrillville wastewater treatment plant to building our own, to possibly tying into the Smithfield wastewater treatment plant. In meeting with the various municipalities and also with DEM, we find at this time it's financially prudent that the town actually execute the interjurisdictional agreement with the city of Woonsocket. In terms of the town of Burrillville, for us to connect into their system right now would put them over capacity. They do not have the capacity to handle their 20-year flows or ours if we were both connected. And furthermore, from discussions from DEM, the increase in the infrastructure costs, not only for the storage capacity, but if we were to re-permit the Burrillville treatment plant's discharge permit, they would, being the regulatory agencies, lower the limits that they're allowed to currently discharge now. We find that the infrastructure costs could be exponential and far in, in the acceptance of the interjurisdictional agreement with Woonsocket. We also looked at building our own plant. In comparison, we met with Angelo Libertieri from DEM, who's the head of the department, so to speak, that we would have to permit this through. In his estimation, this could be upwards of $30 million for us to build our new plant. It could take 5 to 8 years if they even allow the permitting, because we would have to ultimately discharge either into the Blackstone River or to Cherry Brook. Both have what's called TMDLs, total maximum daily loads, that would require us too as a municipality to have very low levels of effluent discharge, which would increase the cost. They also cautioned us that, before they gave a new permit to discharge effluent, knowing that Woonsocket has the capacity, it would probably be in both of our best interests if we work together. So while I say 5 to 8 years and $30 $30 million, Mr. President. We're not sure, nor was DEM, would that even come to fruition. There was no guarantee that there would be any permit taken. So under the three scenarios, really, in essence, we don't have any other better alternatives that I can see from an engineering or financial standpoint.
Okay. Are there any questions?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Sal, thank you for bringing this forward. So the three scenarios, one, tying to, just read up with Woonsocket. Second one, Burrville, which is out of the case. Third one, we cannot start our own sewer. Fourth one, capacity-wise, cost analysis-wise, did someone think about connecting to Lincoln and interconnect with Narragansett sewer? Has that been given a thought?
No,
Narragansett Bay, excuse me.
but we looked into Smithfield and discounted that just because of the extent of the infrastructure and where it would have to go. We have not looked into Lincoln. We certainly can, but just as a quick aerial overview, I think that too, from the sheer distance from our connection point, which is right almost at the town line, to where we'd have to go in Lincoln would be relatively long as well. But I have no knowledge on their capacities, but we certainly, Councilman, can investigate that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, thank you, Mr. Vitale. Next item under road business is C, discussion by council vote or other action on prioritization of charter questions and assignment to town council members for drafts. Okay, good point. I understand that an attorney is present who's going to be briefing the council in executive session, and so to avoid having the clock running more than it needs to, I would ask the council's indulgence in skipping to item number 8, executive session under Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5A2, sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation, or work sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation. We have 4 items listed on the agenda. One is, and actually the first 3, as I'm told, will not in fact be on the agenda. They're going to be on a future agenda, so I don't know if we need to list them. But the fourth one, which is the one that we're going to actually go into executive session for, is Kazarowski versus Town of North Smithfield.
Mr. President, maybe we can list all 4 so we can get an update just in case they
Okay, so the first one is Narragansett Improvement, v. Jill Gemma, AL, Narragansett Improvement, v. Vincent Marcantonio, AL, and Town of North Smithfield versus Narragansett Improvement Company, AL.
And Kazarowski versus.
And Kazarowski versus Town of North Smithfield.
So we go into executive session.
Moved by seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote please.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Yasta?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes.